15 Less than godly acts committed by ancient gods. Part 1.
If you are brand new to our channel, we invite you to take a moment to subscribe. Just click on the lit red button as well as the gray bell. Why the bell? Well, it will let you know every time we post a new video.
1. Apollo, spreading the plague. At first glance, Apollo, the god of the sun, seems like a pretty holistic sort of deity. For one, he governs over issues such as healing and health, and the Greeks were constantly praying to him for help in health and medical matters. But in the Iliad, Apollo is a bit of a brutal figure on the stage of the Trojan War, although he doesn't appear often. It's maybe less known that Apollo also lords over disease, and that he can also cause disease when he thinks it's needed. During the war, an enraged Apollo shot plague-infected arrows into the Greek encampment. This action was done because Apollo was angered that Agamemnon insulted Chryses, a priest of Apollo. We might think this action is a little too tough on mortals for just an insult, and we might be right. Or perhaps this band of Greeks was a pretty evil bunch. 2. Menhit, she who massacres. Most often considered a lioness war goddess, Menhit is an Egyptian goddess whose name means she who massacres, a name which indicates an inherent terror and violence by its very nature. It is said in Egyptian myth that Menhit would often advance ahead in battle for Egyptians and defeat enemies with a host of fire arrows. Whether these arrows were considered literal or figurative remains to be seen, but it's interesting that many ancient cultures spent a vast amount of time propitiating specific gods to obtain a specific desire or some sort of protection. In this case, pharaohs often propitiated Menhit during many wars during Egypt's history. The implication of her name's meaning is that a wrath, when aroused by some. 3. Mixcoatyl, chopping down the family tree. In Aztec myths, Mixcoatyl was one of 4 children of Tenochtitlan, which means Lord of Sustenance, and he is one of the red, or war gods associated with hunting and fire. However strong his title was, Mixcoatyl's existence was troubled by much suffering, as his 400 sons eventually met their demise at the hand of Huitzilopochtli, another god associated with war and human sacrifice. Mixcoatyl also had to fight in battle his own kin, which raises a lot of moral problems in itself, but which, like the Greek myths, seems to indicate some real problems with the gods in the higher realms, which might cause suffering on earth. Mixcoatyl, along with some of his siblings, is said by the Mayans to have killed 400 gods who were his relatives in an ambush. While many people think these tales may be some sort of deeper allegory, it's another troubling idea in myth. 4. Dionysus, tear you to shreds. In the Bacchae, a play written by Euripides, Dionysus, the god of wine and drink, is enraged that the people of Thebes do not recognize his divinity and that of his mother, Semele. This insult is doubly bad to the god, because Thebes is considered Dionysus's birthplace. In revenge for the insult, Dionysus puts some of the women of Thebes who worship him into an intoxicating trance. While in the trance, the women find Pentheus, the king of Thebes who has been anti-Dionysus the whole time, and mistake him for some sort of animal due to some sort of hallucination brought on by Dionysus. As a result, the women, including Pentheus's own mother all tear Pentheus to shreds. The women of Thebes who did this are eventually banished forever from Thebes for this crime. 5. Pallas Athena, fit of rage. In Greek mythology, Pallas Athena is the goddess of wisdom, culture, law, and war strategy. One of the disturbing aspects about her entry into being a well-known and venerated deity in the Greco-Roman traditions was how she derived her first name, Pallas. It is written in Greek myth that she allegedly attained the name Pallas from another goddess, named Pallas, daughter of the sea god Triton. There are 2 versions of how this story happened. One version states that Athena accidentally killed Pallas one day, while they were practicing weaponry together. So distraught about her act, she took on the name to make herself feel better. Another version of this story, the darker version, is that Athena became so mad with Pallas that she murdered Pallas in a fit of rage. 7. Artemis, how many ways can I kill thee, a virgin by some accounts? Artemis is the goddess of hunting, and the sister of Apollo. Like Apollo, her ire can be raised at times to brutal levels, when her reputation is in question. In some versions of a Greek myth about her, she sent a wild boar to kill Adonis, a vegetation god, after he bragged that he was a better hunter than she. In other versions of the tale, she killed Adonis to take revenge for Adonis killing Hippolytus, which would seem like a more plausible reason for taking this sort of action. By some accounts, Artemis was also responsible for killing Orion, her hunting companion whom she may have also fallen in love with. By another account, Apollo tricked Artemis into killing Orion, because he wanted to preserve her virginity. 6. Rama and Lakshamana, bloody forest venture. In the ancient writings of the Ramayana, the story of Rama and his fight against the demon Ravana, Rama is known for being a god in human form, similar to Jesus. His words are always wise and truthful, and he does not think twice about leaving the luxury of his kingdom, when the need calls for it. But when in the forest with his wife Sita, Rama becomes extremely violent when the demons enter his sanctuary in the forest in ancient India. First, he slays Ravana's brother in a gruesome act, and then he gives the order to Lakshamana to cut off the ears and nose of Ravana's sister, Surpanaka. After, due to some enchantment perhaps, she fell in love with Rama. When all of this was done, Rama and his friends laughed at the maimed woman. Surpanaka had indicated before this that she wanted to eat Sita, which created both gods' fury. 8. Thor, rip your head off. More commonly known for his comic book heroics, Thor in ancient Norse legend is often portrayed as a hot-headed, but noble warrior god who sometimes loses his temper. While not exactly cruel or inhumane in his approach, his character is often violent in the myths, but seldom more than what we might expect from a wronged person. His heroic style of being a god is still human, however, in some ways, and some stories in the old books report him drinking mead heavily and hurling bar-like insults at Loki and his like. One tale tells of how Thor once lost Mjolnir, his mountain-crushing hammer, and how he had to regain it by dressing up as a bride for a wedding and sneaking into the mead halls of the Jotnar, or giants. When he recovered the hammer, Thor went on a reckless and gruesome rampage on the Jotnar. Thor is also reported to have ripped an oxen's head off with his bare hands.